And we are live. And Lori, are you seeing live on your end yet? Not yet, but we're going to continue anyway. All right, folks, this is Jay Cummings with People's Trust Company, Business Development Officer and Marketing Director. And welcome to the podcast. This is podcast, I believe, number 5 that we've been hosting on almost every Thursday, bringing you business education and knowledge. And I want to welcome everybody to the channel. I know we have quite a few people that watch us post live, um, and a and a dozen or so that show up live. If you are on here live and you want to ask a question, all you have to do is, whether you're in LinkedIn or Facebook, is just go to the comment section and enter a comment there. Those comments actually feed right directly back to us on this platform, and you can ask any question you like. And if you're a brave soul, you can make a comment and say, I'd like to come on live video and ask questions and have a discussion. We can bring you in and you can conduct your question live, face to face, and ask your question. But today we have a fantastic and special guest, Kaela Coble. And if you look at her first name, it is spelt rather uniquely. And that's part and parcel to her business, which is also very unique. But the first time we met, I saw your website, and then I went in and I stalked you a little bit, and I was watching what you were doing and how you were doing it. And you have the most gorgeous website I think I've ever seen
Oh,
for
thank you.
an entrepreneur. But I mean, it's easy to have pretty graphics.
Yeah.
Like, that's just spending some money and finding the right person to program or whether. But the marketing package that you've plugged into the back end, the front end, whatever it is absolutely fantastic. So anybody listening here today, when the podcast is done, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you go to Kayla's website and read up on it, and click on the links to keep on her marketing list, because she has that absolutely nailed. If you're a small business, I'm going to say just copy what Kayla's doing and you will be fine. I'm jealous that of how you run that. It is absolutely fantastic on that. So let me do a short intro. I don't even, I think I might have even already started the introduction with you on how amazing you are, but Kaela has a bookkeeping business where you hire out her or her staff to take care of your bookkeeping needs. Why don't you? I'm going to do a terrible job of an introduction. Why don't you finish your own introduction? Aren't I a terrible podcast host? I have you do your own intro.
You're fine. You're fine. So hi everyone. I'm Kaela Coble. I'm owner of KPC Bookkeeping. Um, we work with women identified solopreneurs and micro business owners to do your books, but also provide some really important advising that you need to make those big business decisions. We're all about a shame-free approach. We're approach everything with kindness and sense of humor. So you don't have to be worried about asking dumb questions with us. There's no dumb questions. Um, and we understand that people don't always have the same kind of brains as we do on our team. So, which is good. That's why we have jobs. So, um, that's a little about me. I live in St. Albans, Vermont, with my husband and 2 dogs and a cat. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
So that is a perfect way to jump into this category of bookkeeping and when to hire it out, when to do it yourself, and a few other things. I know you had mentioned at our last meeting a couple of topics that you thought would be important to
Yeah.
chat about. I can tell you for myself, when I had my business before I came to the bank, that one of the first hires, I think I had maybe one or two production employees and myself, and then there was a gal around town, for whatever reason, just approached me and said, "Hey, I need a job and I'm really good at bookkeeping." And I said, "Oh, well, I don't know if I'm big enough for you or not." And she said, "No, I'll do anything. Let me start." She really wanted to work and make some money.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I thought I was just doing her a favor at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, geez, a couple hours a week, how, it's not going to be a lot of money. Let's try it.
Yeah.
And let me tell you that by the second week that she worked for me, my first thing I said was, why didn't I do this sooner? This is so much better to keeping me organized and keeping me doing the things that I'm good at,
Yeah.
because I wasn't a great bookkeeper and I wasn't a great invoicer. I waited till the end of the week and tried to pound everything out at
Mhm.
once. And she was just completely on top of it. So one of
Yeah.
the best and smartest hires I ever did was bookkeeping. And can you talk about that little scenario just a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, that's very common, Jay. I hear the why didn't I do this sooner is what everybody says. It's it's something that we feel like we should do ourselves, or maybe we feel like we can't afford, and we're intimidated by the process. We're not sure how it's going to work. We don't want to give up control. There's a lot of reasons why people hesitate to make that first hire. But I think most people have that same reaction. If they hire a good bookkeeper, they are like, why didn't I do this sooner? How did I live without this person? Um, so I think that one of the things when people ask me, when am I ready to hire a bookkeeper? Like what's a good time? I think people are looking for a certain revenue that they're making. And I don't think that it necessarily has to do with your revenue. Of course, you have to be able to afford the bookkeeper.
Mhm.
But I think it's more of an emotional decision than anything. And it's really all about, I mean, I always just say as soon as you can. As soon as you can hire a bookkeeper, do it. Even if you feel like you're maybe a little too small, I think a bookkeeper can really come in and help you. Um, and sorry, I got distracted by the comment. I think that as soon as you can, maybe a little bit sooner than you're totally ready or you're feeling exhausted by your books. Um, there's a lot of reasons when you're way behind on your books. That's a sign that you're ready. That you need someone else to come in and do it because you don't have the time. You don't have the time. You're a business owner. We wear a million hats. We're marketers. We do the actual business. We're bookkeepers. We're um, lawyers, we're doing all of these things and we don't have the time. So I think when you're way behind, that's a sign that it's time to hire it out because you just don't have the time to do it. And you don't want to fall too far behind because then you're getting to tax season and you're like, oh, I have a year's worth or 6 months or whatever it is worth of books to do, and you're totally overwhelmed. And then you go to try to hire a bookkeeper, but it might be a little too late because bookkeepers don't often take on new clients at tax season because they're getting their current clients ready for taxes. So definitely a good time is like right after tax season. People tend to be taking on more clients, and I mean, I'm sure there are bookkeepers that have last minute availability. It's just there's fewer of us, and you want to be able to have a choice. Take your time, find somebody great that you really feel like you can trust. So that's one sign that you're ready to hire. When it feels like torture, when I think a lot of people do feel like that, like, oh, it's time to do my books. I really don't want to do it. And I recommend to people that can't hire someone yet to pair it with something positive, like watching like a guilty pleasure show on in the background, or like having a glass of wine or having some dark chocolate or something. But when you really truly can't make that time be anything less than a slog, that's time to outsource it because you don't want that energy coming into your business and bringing you down. Um, when it keeps you up at night, that's another sign. When you are not able to sleep because you're wondering what's going to happen come tax time, and you're not sure if you're doing it right, what you're already currently doing, that's definitely a sign that it's time to hire someone else because you don't want that stress. It's just not worth it. I think it's worth spending a little money to get your mental health in order, especially as a business owner when we have so many things to worry about. And then when your business is stagnant, when you're feeling like your business is kind of just staying at the same level, you wouldn't necessarily think a bookkeeper could help you with that. You're thinking they're just doing your books and keeping things current. But a really good bookkeeper is going to help advise you and help you think of things to maybe move your business along. Even if they're not an expertise in your area, they have worked with a lot of different business owners and seen things that work for other people. So that can help you, look. And plus, of course, they're examining the numbers and seeing maybe you're spending a little bit too much here, or maybe there's an opportunity to make more here, and then your profit goes up. And that's what we're here for.
That
Yeah.
that's a great, couple of items to point out of when's a good time to think of your bookkeeping. I
Yeah.
think some people are a little concerned about hiring a bookkeeper, thinking that they have to hire an employee, and maybe that employee has to work 32 hours a week to hit
Mm,
the full-time payroll schedule, and they think that's for companies that have 100 employees is what
yeah.
actually do that. So
Yeah.
when in your business or in other similar businesses, if you can't help them, do the first thing is, is it a big commitment in days of week and days a month? Where's that lie?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on your business and your volumes. If you are somebody who has 30 employees and you're needing to run payroll and you have thousands of transactions a month, then maybe that would require somebody in-house. But you could also outsource to a bookkeeper like me, or, lots of bookkeepers that are just freelance and they have their own business. Maybe if you only have a couple, maybe you have like a checking account and a savings account and maybe a credit card, and you've got maybe 50 to 100 transactions a month, or even more if you have hundreds. um, that's definitely something that a freelance bookkeeper could handle for you, and it might only be like 4 or 5 hours a month, um, which could run you $400 or $500 a month, but it's still a lot less than what you would pay for an in-house bookkeeper, especially when you're talking about payroll taxes and benefits and all of that.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of hiring the expert to do expert work
Yeah.
because, yeah, it may be a little bit more money than a standard employee, but when you have an employee, you've got the obligation to keep that person employed. This
Yes.
meant, 32, 40 hours a week, and then all of the other, the taxes to match, the health insurance, all the other obligations.
Yeah.
When you look at hiring a professional bookkeeper, per se, yeah, it might be a certain dollar amount, but it's certainly a lot less money than hiring full-time staff. And
Yeah.
on top of it, that person has the expertise. And usually, I'm assuming on a smaller business, you're going in and replacing the owner from doing
Yeah.
the books to doing it yourself. And
Yeah.
then I asked the owner in that case, because they're spending 10 hours a month doing their books, and I'm like, well, what do as the owner, if you're in the trades, you're probably billing yourself out at 100, $200 an hour.
Hmm.
And I say, well, you're doing the books. Would you pay you to do the books at another business for $200 an hour?
Yeah.
And the answer is no, because, they feel that a qualified bookkeeper could do it in a fraction of the time, first of
Yes.
all,
Yeah.
and then so much better than them, like you had alluded to with the quality a minute ago.
Yeah. That's the other thing is, you know, you, a bookkeeper can probably do it quicker than you and also better. Not to be snarky about it, but this is what we do, and we're used to doing the same types of processes all the time. And I think we're just better equipped to do things in a more timely way. So it's really saving you money in the long run.
Absolutely, no question about it. And then on the education side of things, with all of your vast experience with several other businesses, to your point earlier about you can even if sales or your profits were flat, maybe that bookkeeper can be a consultant to you and
Yeah.
and spot opportunities that you wouldn't normally spot. And I'm big on education. That's why I do these podcasts. We do
Hmm.
workshops in the non-summer months. Um, to provide that education to help my businesses and the people around my area to make their businesses stronger and to
Hmm.
make their businesses grow. And I do a lot of business consulting myself, but I tell people I'm not your only consultant. You should have 3 or 4 at a minimum of people that
Yeah.
you have the ability to reach out and ask a question or 2. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a full-time employee.
Yes, yeah, and I love working with people who already have other people on their team, like a CPA, maybe a financial coach or some other type of coach, because we're that way we can all kind of focus on goals and make sure that we're all on the same page. Like I can shoot ideas past the CPA. They can ask me to do something specific for them in their books. Coaches can ask me to set up the chart of accounts in a certain way so they can see things the way that they want, that they're focusing on. But I'm also focused on goals with clients as well to, so that we're not just talking about a profit and loss, but even if it's, I want 1,000 followers on Facebook by this date or something, just so that they have, even if they don't have any other people on their team, they have me as sort of a coach to keep them accountable to their goals, and so that I always know what they're planning, so that I can keep that in mind when I'm reviewing their books and doing their analysis and thinking about how to advise them.
Absolutely. So when they bring you in, I mean, you are not just performing a service, you are giving them, some advisement, some education, a coach,
Yeah.
all 3 together. So,
Yeah.
okay, so we did touch on, when you would recommend hiring a bookkeeper, and from what I'm
Yeah.
hearing, it's if you're doing your own books, probably now, and almost everybody that goes to you says they wish they would have done it earlier. Do I have
Yeah.
that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So, what's the difference? I mean, I haven't really met a bad bookkeeper. I don't think I have. I mean, they all seem
That's
fairly good
great.
at what they do,
Yeah.
but how do you know you have a good bookkeeper or a great one? Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So, bookkeepers are just like any profession. They range in what they provide, they range in how they provide it. Um, you can find what I hear from a lot of people that are coming to me who have had a bookkeeper before is that they have the bookkeeper, they maybe send their reports like once a year. Um, they're maybe not super responsive, like they'll respond, but maybe it's a week or two later, or maybe you require a follow up. Um, they do a good enough job. They do what you need to do to get your taxes filed. Are um, they respond, but maybe not so quickly, and they're probably affordable. They're probably maybe somebody that you picked because they were really low price. Unfortunately, you pay for what you get in that situation. So ideally, a bookkeeper will be somebody who's going to go above and beyond for you. So not just doing your monthly books and sending you reports. I mean, that's great. If you're just getting somebody to do your books perfectly, accurately, and send you reports once a month, that's good in and of itself. So if that's your type of bookkeeper, if that's who you have and you're happy with that, that's great. But you should know that there are people that go a little bit above and beyond, that will provide that extra service, advising, or somebody saying, I need help making a budget, or I need to know if I can afford this employee.
Mm.
um, they'll add this much income, but they'll cost this much more. Can we figure out, that a great bookkeeper will kind of be able to figure out, present to you a spreadsheet or something that's going to make sense for you to understand how that would work.
That's a great point right there.
Yeah.
And I never would have thought to chat with a bookkeeper to say, I'm thinking about hiring somebody. Can
Yeah.
I afford it? Could you provide me some assistance or some financial awareness? Because there are a lot of hidden expenses to an employee. I mean, yeah, you're going to pay them X amount, but there's the taxes to match, there's the benefits and the other, the unemployment taxes and all those other things. So if somebody's on your payroll at 25 bucks an hour, it's probably costing you 33, 34, 35
Hmm.
dollars an hour to have them. And that's the
Hmm.
true cost to the company, even though the employee's net might be down around $18 an hour was their take home pay. So there's a big
Hmm.
discrepancy with that. That's
Yeah.
an excellent point of tapping into you as a resource for those decisions on how to run that business.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not something that a lot of people think of, but I think it's something that a lot of people want, but they're maybe afraid to ask, or they're just not sure who that person is that can help them. But a bookkeeper should be able to help you figure that out. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great bookkeepers also will respond quickly to you and with compassion. So that's, there are there are so many wonderful bookkeepers out there, but there are some that maybe they're overloaded. There's all those the thing with those really affordable bookkeepers is they have to have a ton of clients to meet their expenses, and that means that they're probably going to be a little overloaded and they won't respond to you as quickly. And when they do respond, it might be a short response. It might not be exactly what you needed to know. They may even talk down to you a little bit. Because they're so used to these questions, and they're overwhelmed, and whatever it is, there's no excuse for someone to talk down to you. So that's something to look out for too, is how does the bookkeeper answer questions? How do they respond to you? And do you get satisfactory answers, or are you still confused when you're done with them? A good bookkeeper will really want to make sure that you get it and you understand what they're trying to, what knowledge they're trying to impart.
That is another, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm replaying in my mind either some of the businesses I consult with, or when I owned my business, or other people, that level of detail when you do ask the professional a question. A lot of times in business, it's not just a very simple uh, uh, question of, do you stop at the stop sign and go on the green light? A lot of these things have a lot of nuance to them. And I find that really great ideas, the difference between good and great is a very nuanced. And if your bookkeeper is overloaded and isn't taking a lot of time with the question, they're going to fire out a generic question, which is of no value to you.
Yeah.
They really need to drill into that specific minute detail to give you the answer that you need.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. Hey, and I hope I'm not interrupting you, because I know you're going through the difference of a good and a great bookkeeper. I
No.
did want to jump over real quick.
Yeah.
We do have a question from the audience, and then I'll also let anybody that just tuned in recently, that if you have a question, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, just type your question in the comments, and it automatically pops over here to us. And Lisa Ryman's asking if she was looking for a bookkeeper or interviewing somebody, what types of questions should I ask that person?
That's a great question, because I often, when I'm doing discovery calls, I don't get a lot of questions, other than they do ask specifically, can you help me with such and such? So like the project I said, I'm hiring a new employee, and I need to know if I can afford that, and what that does to my net profit and all of that at the end of the year. I think that that's an important question to ask, is those extras, those things that you really need help with, that you think might even be out of the realm of what a bookkeeper works with. Ask anyway. Ask if that's something you can help with. And that it might be that you can live without them. If they can't help you with one thing, then you can still live with that and you can find someone else. But just ask them questions like that, so that you know what they're able to do, and really listen to their answers. Like if they've done that for clients before, that's an important piece. Or if they're willing to learn, or learn more about your industry. I think that those are all good signs. But really just ask them, go into it knowing what type of relationship you want with the bookkeeper, and and ask them questions accordingly. So ask them, what's your response time when I have a question? How do I get a hold of you? Because some people are just email. Some people are like, oh, you can text me, call me, email me. There's lots of options. Ask them. Let's see, what else should you ask them?
What about a contract? Would it be common for a bookkeeper to say, you have to sign up with me for a year or two?
Yeah, I think some bookkeepers do that. I don't. I do a month to month. But yeah, definitely that's a good question to ask. Ask them how many, I see somebody ask how many days to close month. So you can ask them, when am I going to get my reports? How long is it going to take me to get my reports after the month closes? You might want to ask if they have a staff, if they have a team, because I have a team and I have 3 bookkeepers that work with me. And once I've done a cleanup, I tend to move them along to a bookkeeper who's their dedicated bookkeeper and does a lot of the back end stuff, the categorizing, the reconciling, all of that, and asking questions about transactions. So you don't want to be surprised that you're like passed off to somebody. You want to know what's going to happen. So asking if there's a team that they work with would be great. Another thing is asking about the technology they use. I have a client portal that makes things easy to upload, and it's a secure portal, so I can put things there. They can download them. They can answer questions right in the portal. So everything's in one place. So it's really a matter of knowing what's important to you and asking those things, and just be clear about what you want.
That's one of the things that and we've only met like twice, that I absolutely love about you. I fell in love with your website. I fell in love with your marketing. And then when I asked you about a referral that was looking for a bookkeeper, you were crystal clear and said, because nonprofits have different requirements, I don't do them.
Yep.
Whereas I think most bookkeepers would be like, oh, well, I'm everything to everybody. And yeah, I'll give
Yes.
that a go. Let me try that.
Yes. Yeah, especially bookkeepers starting out, which I don't blame them. They're not sure what they like and they're not sure what they want, and they just really are hungry for the business. So they just ask, um they just say that they can take on anybody. I think that if you are a special niche like a nonprofit or a restaurant or a real estate, those are 3 that a lot of bookkeeper, I actually don't work with those 3 industries. But a lot of bookkeepers do. You can find them. You might want to find one with experience in that industry though, because they are trickier to do.
Gotcha. So that is a good point, is make sure that they have relevant experience within that industry before
Yeah.
you jump in with them. And I know you had just asked, you had spoke about that when Allison Avery entered a question about how many days to close a month. And I know Allison's going to want to know what that number actually is. So Allison, why don't you chime in on how many days you think it should take to have your month closed out? But I think we're already over. Do you have time to hang on for one more question,
I
Kayla?
do. Yeah.
Okay, I apologize running over, but I think we're getting a lot of great topics here.
Yeah.
Uh, what what do you look out for when, and maybe you have a bad keeper, or maybe a bad bookkeeper? Let's not call a bad bookkeeper. Let's say it's not a good match for you and your
Yeah.
business. What do you look out for? And I bet a lot of people stay with the relationship too long, so by the time they do part ways, it's getting pretty ugly. So
It's
what do you
nasty.
do in those situations? Like how soon? What are the red flags to look for, and how do you handle that transition from one to another?
Yeah, so there's a few red flags of actual bad bookkeepers that are scammers. And I know I'm really passionate about this, so forgive me if I go off on a tangent, but um bookkeepers should never have access to your checkbook. They should never be able to transfer money on your behalf. They should never have any ability to do that without your permission. There are ways that, in a lot of in business bank accounts, you can give a bookkeeper read only access to your money, or to your bank account, so they can see your statements, they can see your transactions, they can look and see like who a check was made out to or something, but they can't actually go in and transfer money to anyone. There's no reason a bookkeeper needs that access, and if they're telling you they need your personal password to a bank account, then that's a huge red flag, and you do not hire that person.
Run.
um, what?
I said run, run away.
Yeah, run, exactly. I thought you said why. I was like, well, Jay, obviously, we don't want them stealing your money.
Right.
So yeah, never give unlimited access to any bookkeeper. And again, if they try to make you feel guilty about that, they might say, oh, I've never had a client had a problem with that. Well, you're the first client to have a problem with that, and that's okay. Um, So that's something to look out for. Other red flags are if they always have an excuse and they never admit a mistake. So bookkeepers are like everyone else. We make mistakes. And if there's always like some reason that's your fault that they say is your fault or that isn't their fault, sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it's not their fault. But if it's a pattern where they're never admitting a mistake, then that's a big red flag, because people who are trying to con you, they want you to have confidence in them. And so they don't want you to think that they make mistakes. They want you to think that they're supermen and women.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big one. And other things are just like making you feel stupid or making you feel like you're a burden or you're, too much for them or whatever. Like that's just not a good way to feel about your bookkeeper. And it's not a good way to feel when you're a business owner and you're on top of all of your stuff. But maybe you're not as on top of the bookkeeping, which is why you have a bookkeeper. So anybody that's making you feel like that's a red flag and you should ditch them. And then other ones are that just to look out for that are kind of scammy behaviors are to make you feel like you can't live without them. Now, you should feel like, oh God, I'm so glad I have this bookkeeper in my life. But a good bookkeeper will kind of help you figure out how to do things and make it seem a lot easier for you, so that you don't feel like if something happened to my bookkeeper, I would be totally lost, or at least that you would never think that you could find a bookkeeper again. You should build that good relationship with them so that you feel kind of comfortable without them if you had to be without them. And then the last red flag would just if they're causing division between you and your partners or you and other people in your life. So say they're kind of talking smack about your business partner behind their back, and trying to, anything that you feel like they're trying to cause distrust.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a red flag that they're trying to separate you from the other people that around you that you trust, so that you'll only trust the bookkeeper, so that you believe everything they say. So if you notice that kind of happening, then that's a red flag as well.
Wow. I never, when I was thinking of asking you that question of looking out for a bad bookkeeper, I was always thinking of maybe they were just not honed in their craft as much as they
Yeah.
should have been.
Yeah.
And I totally whiffed on fraud, right?
Yeah, that's a big thing that I'm passionate about, so I always try to do that. But also there are just people that are not a good fit for you. They don't, maybe they don't seem like they have the skills that you need. And in that case, it's totally fine to break up with them. It's normal. You don't always get a good bookkeeper on the first try. You don't always get somebody who gives you everything you need on the first try. Sometimes your needs evolve and your bookkeeper can't handle those needs. So I think, when it's time to make that shift and find another bookkeeper that maybe someone else recommends, someone that has worked with them, so that that you're getting somebody great.
Boy, what a great point to that is, and maybe that should be one of the questions when you're hiring a bookkeeper, is saying, if we break up, what's the breakup strategy, or what's
Yeah.
that going to look like?
Yeah. That's a great question to ask.
Huh. Wow. Well, I'm going to feel guilty if I keep you here much longer. You have been an absolute wealth of information.
Oh, thank you.
And I want to thank you personally and professionally for coming on here. Anybody wants to learn more about Kaela's business, go to KPC Bookkeeping. And I've already gushed about how wonderful her website is and how great her marketing is. And we were talking earlier before we went live about a checklist that people have or can have access to.
Yes, and I'll post that in the comments. But basically I offer, you sign up for my newsletter, you can unsubscribe at any time, but you get a free bookkeeping checklist that it tells you what you should be doing weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. And it's not, every business is like a snowflake. They're all different and everyone needs different things, but it's a general kind of outline of all the things that you want to think about.
Wow, that is absolutely fantastic. I'm gonna grab that myself and read on it, and I know 2 or 3 people right now that I can share that with. So thanks again, Kayla, for coming on.
Thanks for
I
having
hope
me.
that we can get you to come back because this is
Yeah.
absolutely great. And you got so much information, and it feels like we just barely scratched the surface.
Yeah.
So I super appreciate that. Everybody go on over to Kayla's website, check out her marketing, her website. I absolutely love it. And maybe some of you need a bookkeeper and she might be a great fit for you. You know, you're going to figure that out real quick in talking to her. So thanks again, everyone. And I think our next session is we have the great Mike Lannon's going to talk about AI, but I think that's
Mm.
not until the 10th. But I'll give everybody a good heads up on that. So with that, I'm going to say so long to everybody. And Kayla, thank you again
Thank
so very
you.
much for coming on and sharing all your wisdom. It was absolutely perfect. And I hope you come back again.
Yes, I will.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. If it's Thursday, it's People's Trust Company's education package on our podcast. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.